Hello there, everyone. Welcome to my first official mock draft Monday going into the 2025 NFL draft. Now, there's a reason I have yet to do a mock draft this year, and the main reason is because we have not known the draft order. For so many weeks, it was the Patriots at the first pick, the Giants had it for a while, the Raiders had it for a while. It's gone back and forth between so many people. And not that it's not fun to do a mock draft when you don't know the draft order, but it was kind of pointless, right? At least in my opinion, putting a product out on my channel. I wanted the updated draft order to be finalized. And yes, picks 19 through 32 have not been finalized yet. It's only the first 18 picks. However, I felt like that was good enough for me to want to finally make a mock draft and put it out on my channel for this first mock draft Monday here on January 6th. Now, this is a mocked draft. Nobody ever goes 32 for 32 in mock drafts. Last year, or most years, I'm pretty sure, you only get like 5 to 10 picks right, because all it takes is one team making one trade, or one team taking one player that nobody thought that they would take, and that completely ruins the draft. Look at last year with the Falcons and Michael Penix Jr., my Atlanta Falcons, taking him at 8. Nobody had that on their big board, and it kind of just had this spiraling effect downwards to the rest of the draft. Also, since this is a mock draft, I could be completely wrong on a lot of things here. I could be completely wrong. Plus, we don't know yet who's firing coaches, who's keeping coaches. Obviously, there's free agency, which happens before the draft as well. So many factors that go into play, but I'm sure all of you guys know that. So with the information I have, here's going to be the mock draft that I do. This is also going to be a draft with no trades. I want to preference that now. It's going to be in the title, but there's no trades. What are the Titans going to do here at 1? Last week, the Patriots had the first overall pick, and the Titans had the second pick. And I thought, well, the Patriots will take Travis Hunter, the Titans will take a quarterback. I thought that was pretty simple. Now Travis Hunter's in play. I think this pick is either Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, or Cam Ward. It's one of those three guys. When I look at the quarterbacks of this draft class, there's only 2 quarterbacks I think that'll go in the first round. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Me personally, I like Cam Ward more as a prospect. Both of them are going to be 23. Well, Shedeur Sanders is already 23. Ward is going to be 23 by the time of the draft. So age is not a thing. They both have similar experience as well. When I look at Cam Ward, I just like his ability to move in the pocket more. I like his creativity more. They both have pretty similar arms, but Cam Ward also has not had a Travis Hunter to throw the ball to. Cam Ward has not had an elite number 1 wide receiver. He's had good wide receivers, but he doesn't have anyone elite to throw the ball to. Yes, Shedeur Sanders also doesn't have an offensive line. So when you look at the talent around the team, it's both pretty similar with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Just Cam Ward has not had a Travis Hunter to bail him out in a couple of plays here. That's not a dig on Shedeur Sanders. A good quarterback needs to be able to take full advantage of their good weapons, which Shedeur does do with Travis Hunter. But me personally, I like Cam Ward. Another big reason, attitude. Right? I saw a lot of people saying, oh my God, Cam Ward, he just went for the award and then he substituted himself out of the game at halftime in his bowl game against Iowa State. What if, completely different narrative here, what if Cam Ward told the team that that's what he was going for? He was going for his 3 touchdowns, and then at halftime, he wanted his backup to get some reps in as well. I haven't heard anybody on the team come out and say that we had no clue Cam Ward was going to do this. Now, and I believe if that's the case, someone would come out and be mad about it, right? Now, maybe no one's come out about it, but I'm not questioning Cam Ward coming out at halftime. He's just protecting himself. He had a great first half. He did not need to prove anything else in the second half. I don't think that's going to ruin his draft stock at all. Maybe to some teams it will. But me personally, Cam Ward is my QB1 in this draft class. Shedeur Sanders is QB2. When I look at their talent, I think it's pretty similar. I like Cam Ward a little bit more in terms of talent. And then also Cam Ward doesn't have these off-field issues that you see with Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, his character comes into play at times. There have just been things that he said, calling out his own line publicly, that you would just prefer those happen behind closed doors. It's very logical for him to be upset at his team's play. Very logical. His team played bad at times, but you don't go to the media with that stuff. You don't give the media these cookie cutter portraits that you could put. If you are a GM, if you are a head coach, you do not want your own quarterback blasting you on social media and putting you out in the spotlight like that. You want a leader and someone who's going to bring the locker room together. Calling out your own team publicly is not going to bring the locker room together. Again, for the Titans, if they do take quarterback, I think it's Cam Ward, and that's who I'm going to go here. This very easily could be Travis Hunter. This very easily could be Shedeur Sanders. I just like Cam Ward more. You might be thinking to yourself, well, the Titans, they have Will Levis. Will Levis is garbage. I'm done with Will Levis. It's only been 2 years. He took a step back in year 2. He took a step back. You might be thinking to yourself, give him more weapons. There's some plays that he made. It doesn't matter who was at wide receiver. He made a couple of terrible plays. I'm already done with Will Levis. He's just made some mistakes. 13 touchdowns to 12 interceptions is bad for a year 2 quarterback. You have a chance to take QB1 right here. You have a chance to take a franchise quarterback and turn your team around. Also, you look at their head coach. It's either Bryce Callahan or Brian Callahan. I forget his name. It's B. Callahan. He didn't draft Will Levis. The Titans head coach now has a chance to draft his quarterback of the future, and I believe that's Cam Ward. Browns here at 2. I am taking Shedeur Sanders. I believe that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders will definitely both be taken here in these top 3 picks. I think if either of these guys make it out, if Travis Hunter is drafted here, I think the Giants draft whatever quarterback is not taken, if that makes sense. And I will draft Travis Hunter here 3. I believe this is your 1, 2, and 3 here. I don't really see a world where this is not. I believe that these teams will take quarterback. If the Titans do pass on a quarterback and take Travis Hunter, then I believe that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go 2 and 3. All 3 of these teams need quarterbacks. With the Browns, they just restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. I believe the plan is you draft Shedeur Sanders, have him sit for a year, keep Deshaun Watson as your quarterback so you take less of a cap hit when you do eventually have to cut him, or I don't think anyone's going to trade him, so cut him, and then bring in Shedeur Sanders after a year. Let him sit for a year, learn the ways of the NFL, try to maybe get his attitude checked, and let him know that just some stuff's not going to fly. And then Travis Hunter at 3 to the Giants. This is best player available. Abdul Carter is great as well, but the Giants already have Brian Burns and Tavon Thibodeaux. Travis Hunter, he can be a corner for them, or he could be a wide receiver. A lot of scouts have him played as a corner. The Giants need corner help. Deonte Banks, who they drafted a couple of years in the first round, hasn't really looked that good. Giants do not have a good secondary. They need help, and Travis Hunter will instantly be able to come in and be their corner 1 of the future. And then Patriots here at 4. So Jerod Mayo was already fired for the Patriots. And if you're the Patriots, what do? Do you try and help your rookie quarterback in Drake May? Or do you take best player available? Because best player available here is Abdul Carter. I believe Abdul Carter is easily a top 5 player in this draft class. He is the best edge rusher in this class, hands down. Absolute freak of nature. No one's able to guard him. I believe he got, 12 sacks, 20 tackles for loss. I think I guess it doesn't show your stats here. Full report, I don't think I have the money for this. I don't even know what the hell I just did. Take me back. Abdul Carter is a top 5 player in this class. So do you go best player available, or do you help Drake May, who absolutely died out there? Drake May was under pressure constantly. The Patriots had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL this year. And with Travis Hunter off the board, I think you have to protect Drake May. You just absolutely have to. I see a lot of people go with wide receiver, with Tetairoa McMillan being the second best wide receiver behind Travis Hunter. Abdul Carter's the best player available, and the Patriots do need edge help. But you have to protect your quarterback of the future. Drake May and Jacoby Brissett were getting murdered out there. You need help. And I'm just going to take the best offensive lineman available, and that to me is Will Campbell. I see a lot of scouts saying that the 2 best offensive lineman prospects are Will Campbell and Kevin Banks Jr. from Texas. Me personally, I like Campbell more because he can play anywhere on the offensive line. Banks is traditionally a tackle. I believe that he'll be drafted as a left tackle, where Will Campbell, he can play anywhere. He can play tackle, he can play guard. He's 6'6", he's absolutely massive. You can line him up anywhere on the offensive line. And for the Patriots who need help all across the board, get yourself a guy who you can slot in anywhere that you want, and he will instantly be a starter for you. Jacksonville at 5, same exact thing. Like I said, Abdul Carter, best player available, but you just need to protect Trevor Lawrence. He, again, is just constantly getting hurt, constantly getting hit. The Jaguars have never really had a franchise left tackle. They tried Cam Robinson for a while, didn't work out for him. Get you Kelvin Banks Jr., who arguably is the best pure left tackle in this class. Get yourself a guy who can protect Trevor Lawrence, who never seems to be healthy, and even when Mac Jones was out there, he was getting killed as well. Get yourself an offensive line. Protect your quarterback. Protect your future. And for two teams that are really bad offensive lines this year, I think the Patriots and the Jaguars will both be incredibly happy with who they got. Now, the Raiders here at 6 are an interesting position because both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are off the board. I think that this is the first real spot that Ashton Jeanty could go. When you think about the top running backs every single year, everyone, whenever they make their mock drafts, always undervalues the running back position and says, you don't need to draft a running back that high. Well, let's look at what's happened the last couple of years, right? You have the Atlanta Falcons taking Bijan at 8 and Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Lions at 12. Everyone criticized them for that, and look at how good and how special they've been. Looked at the Giants when they drafted Saquon at 2. Look at how good Saquon has been. I understand that running back is not a valuable position, but having a good running back can absolutely change your team, make your team incredibly special. Look at how good the Eagles are right now with Saquon. Look at how good the Lions and the Falcons are with Bijan and Gibbs. Ashton Jeanty is great. I could totally see him going here to the Raiders at 6. But the Raiders have always been a defensive first team, and their defense took a step back this year. Now their defense has also really been hurt, but I do not hate Will Johnson here to the Raiders, and I am going to actually go ahead and do that. The Raiders, like I said, are a defensive first team, and the Raiders never truly have really had a corner one for a while now, a DB1. Will Johnson can come in and instantly be their best DB, and you look at a Raiders team that has to go up against the Chiefs and the Chargers each year, and now even the Broncos are starting to look good as well. You have to stop those high-powered offenses, and you aren't going to be able to do that if you do not get yourself a CB1. The Raiders constantly were just getting crushed on defense every single week. Yes, their offense wasn't doing much either. The Raiders need help all across the board. And in my personal opinion, like I said, that's just best player available. To them, that could be a DB, because I believe that it is much easier to get yourself a running back and a wide receiver than it is to get yourself a good DB. You can get plenty of wide receivers in free agency or down the board. Same with running back. DB is different though. In this year's DB class, Travis Hunter and Will Johnson are the clear corner 1 and corner 2, and then after that, the talent level drops. Not significantly, but it does drop. Travis Hunter and Will Johnson are up here, and DB3, who I don't even know who it is down here. It's definitely a step below. Get yourself the best DB possible in Will Johnson, and just bolster that defense that is constantly going up against high-power offenses every single week. Jets at 7, I have no clue. This has been the hardest pick in the draft for me, because we don't know what's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is probably retiring, but they're not going to take a quarterback. What's going to happen with Devontae Adams? What's going to happen with Allen Lazard? Is Garrett Wilson going to want to stay with the team? Who knows? The Jets' defense also was terrible this year, despite it being what is known as the betterment of the team. I would have totally said take Will Johnson here, but I already had him go to the Raiders. This could be you just take best player available, which is Abdul Carter. Yes, the Jets already have Jermaine Johnson. Yes, the Jets already have Will McDowell. But Jermaine Johnson was hurt this year, and you never can have enough edge rushers and defensive line. You could also say maybe take Mason Graham to play alongside of Quentin Williams. But again, here's McMillan here, best wide receivers on the board. For me personally, though, I think there's a player like Abdul Carter on the board who's a top 5 player in my opinion, and he's right there at 7. Like I said, I think you could take Mason Graham or Abdul Carter here, and spoiler alert, whoever I don't give to the Jets, I'm giving to the Panthers. We'll just do Abdul Carter, and then we'll just do Mason Graham. You could switch these for me. I think whoever the Jets take at 7, The other team takes the other player at 8 because these are the two best defensive players on the board. Abdul Carter, like I said, is a top 5 player to me. Mason Graham is a top 10 player. Mason Graham, he doesn't get a lot of sacks, but he just eats bodies. You need to have 2 people on him. He's the best defensive tackle in the league. He is just an absolute threat. He's so big. He's so physical. In college, there's constantly 2 guys on him. He's just an absolute menace for the center or whoever they decide to put on him. Like I said, he doesn't have the best stats in the world, but that's because he's constantly getting double teamed. You do not have to. You don't have to look at the stats. You have to watch the tape when you watch Mason Graham, and you will see that he is constantly affecting the play every single time. He is always a game changer. And to put him alongside Derek Brown for the Carolina Panthers, that's going to be absolute money. Saints here at 9, I think they're thrilled that McMillan fell to them. The Saints need playmakers. They have Chris Olave, and I think Chris Olave with his speed and McMillan with he's 6'5", he goes up and catches the ball one-on-one. He's a great route runner. Now, McMillan doesn't have the speed. That's like the thing that he lacks in his game, but McMillan's almost like a Courtland Sutton type. But he's even taller than Courtland Sutton. McMillan just he's great with the one-on-one catches, and he's 6'5". He's taller than everyone else. His wingspan is phenomenal. He's able to go up and get those one-on-one catches. When he went up against Travis Hunter, he had a couple of great plays against Travis Hunter, who we already know is the best DB in this year's draft class. And McMillan, he made Travis Hunter look silly on a couple of plays. Now, not every single time, but he looked good against Travis Hunter on a couple of plays. Saints need playmakers. They don't have any playmakers on offense besides Chris Olave and Kamara. They both got hurt this year. You saw how bad the Saints offense was when Kamara and Olave were off the field. They need more playmakers. McMillan can help them. Then the Chicago Bears here at 10. Here I think is another spot for Ashton Jeanty. I really do. I believe, though, that they'll probably stay with DeAndre Swift in this position. If you're the Bears, offensive line is where you need help. But do you pull the trigger on some of these offensive linemen here in the back, like Cameron Williams or Josh Simmons or Jonah here? I'm not even going to pronounce that last name. I've heard it before. I'm going to absolutely butcher it. Do you pull the trigger on some of these offensive tackles that are not worth top 10 picks? Because you'd be drafting for position there. You would be overextending. You wouldn't be taking a top 10 player. That's not to say that these offensive tackles aren't good, but these are more late round, first round offensive talent, or offensive line talent players. They are a step below Will Campbell and Kevin Banks Jr. They are the top 2 guys in the class. They're a step below. I know a lot of people are high on some of these offensive lineman prospects here, but will the Bears use a top 10 pick on one of them? Caleb Williams was getting absolutely murdered out there, and you need to help him out. I think best case scenario for the Bears might be trade down, maybe with the Cowboys so that they can get Ashton Jeanty, or maybe the Bengals want Ashton Jeanty. A team tries to jump the Cowboys for him. But in this trade with no mock drafts, I am just going to take Jalen Walker here from Georgia. Jalen Walker, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's only 6'2", but he's just so explosive off the edge. And he can also drop back into coverage. I'm not saying that he is Micah Parsons, but he has that Micah Parsons capability of being able to rush off the edge and then drop back into coverage as well, just like how Micah Parsons did in Penn State. Now, I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying he plays the role of Micah Parsons. He does exactly what Micah Parsons did at Penn State to what Jalen Walker does at Georgia. He can blitz off the edge, and he can drop back if you need him to. He can play a 3-4 scheme. For the Bears, I think they're going to like that. I think the Bears are going to, even though the Bears do a 4-3 defense, I think the Bears are going to like someone that has that capability and be a nice complement to Montez Sweat. I think the Bears' leading sack leader only had 5.5 or 6.5 sacks. They need a complement to Montez Sweat. I think Jalen Walker does that very well. This easily could also be an offensive lineman as well. This could be. I think it's a little rich for my blood, but the Bears could draft for need here rather than best player available and take an offensive lineman. Which then San Francisco here at 11. I believe that this could be a lot of things for the 49ers. I truly do. They don't have wide receiver listed here, but I believe that wide receiver could be in play. Deebo Samuel obviously didn't look that good this year. Who knows what's happening with Brandon Ayuk. Ricky Pearsall also looked okay at times. The The 49ers could take an offensive weapon here. Again, I don't think that I think this is a little too early for offensive line. They could easily go edge rusher. But I also do not hate the 49ers taking Derek Harmon here from Oregon. Derek Harmon has been rising off draft boards significantly for Oregon, and he's been an absolute beast for Oregon on the interior of the defensive line. He's great at stopping the run. He's great at getting pressure. And the 49ers, you already know that they have Nick Bosa, but the 49ers have constantly been trying to get defensive tackles in there, and it hasn't really worked out the best for them. I know that they recently gave Javon Hargraves a big contract. They tried Javon Kinlaw a couple years ago, drafting him, and he's no longer on the team. The 49ers are constantly looking to upgrade their defensive tackle position. I think that this could also very easily be Mykel Williams as well, but I went with the best defensive tackle on the board, or the second defensive tackle behind Mason Graham and Derek Harmon, just because of how deep this edge rusher class is. The 49ers could easily pick up an edge rusher in the second round and be happy about that as well. Then Cowboys at 12, it's easily Ashton Jeanty. This is probably the most mocked thing out of every single mock drafts. I think Jeanty could easily go before this. I really do. Like I said, I think there's a couple of spots here that Ashton Jeanty could go. We all know his name. We all know what a stud he is. We all know how many missed tackles he created and how he's just an absolute freak for Boise State and how it's impossible to bring this guy down. Cowboys don't have a running back. It's a perfect fit. I also struggle for what the Miami Dolphins are going to do. Tyreek Hill says that he wants out. Tyreek Hill just formally requested that he wants out of Miami. Miami could easily need a wide receiver. We do not know what's going to happen there. For Miami's case, I think you just take best player available. And to me, that's either Malachi Starks or Luthen Bader III. Those are his two options here. Miami, edge rusher isn't significant need. They just drafted Chop Robinson, and he did really good for them last year. Malachi Starks, both of the Miami Dolphins safeties that they have on their team right now, I believe are free agents either this year or next year. So Malachi Starks can instantly come in and be a really good safety there for the Dolphins. But how high do the Dolphins value safety? You saw Derwin James get drafted a couple of years to the Chargers at 17, but he fell. Safety is a position that does fall in the NFL. I don't know why it's so undervalued. Same thing with nickel corner. You look at Brian Branch even a couple of years ago, top safety. It's crazy that he fell to the first round. Will a team draft Malachi Starks here at 9? Will it be the Dolphins? I believe it could be. But also, with the whole Tyreek Hill news coming out right now, maybe they lose a speedster. And with Luthen Bader here being one of the best speedsters in the class out of Missouri, and with the Dolphins head coach, Mike, coming back for another season, you know how much he loves his speed. You know how much he loves Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, and Jalen Waddle. It would make perfect sense for them to take a fast wide receiver. Tyreek Hill did not do that good this year. Who knows? Tyreek Hill could be gone. I'm going to take Luthen Bader here. Simply because, like I said, safety isn't valued that high, and the Dolphins could be out on a wide receiver. Then the Indianapolis Colts at 14. I think that this is pretty easily going to be Tyler Warren, or either Tyler Warren or Colston Loveson. We always mocked the Colts at tight end. I swear to God, every single year, the first tight end off the board is mocked to the Colts, and it's because the Colts have never really had a tight end. They keep on trying to draft these guys in the second, third round. It just doesn't work for them. It just doesn't work out. Tyler Warren and Colston Loveson were hands down the two best tight end prospects in the class. I believe they both will go in the first. I just like Tyler Warren a little bit more because I believe that while he's great at passing, I believe that he also is more of a threat in the blocking game as well. More of a threat than Colston Loveson as well. Both are great guys, just I like that Tyler Warren has a second mode as well, where we can see him block. I look at Sam Laporta for the Detroit Lions and how he's great at catching, but he also is very valuable in the run game. A Colts team that loves their offensive line, loves to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. You get yourself a tight end that can both do it both for you, that can both catch and block. I love Tyler Warren here to the Colts at 14, which leaves the Falcons at 15 to go Mykel Williams. Now, Williams easily could go before this. I don't expect him in real life to fall to the Falcons at 15. Who knows? Maybe he does. He very easily could do that. Mykel Williams doesn't really get the stats that you would like him to get, but just he's 6'5", and just an absolute freak of nature. He has traits that you cannot teach. You can teach him how to blitz off an edge. You can teach him spin moves and power moves. You can't teach that size. You cannot teach that athleticism. He is an absolute freak of nature, might be the most athletic edge in this entire draft class. Absolute freak of nature. The Falcons desperately need edge help. They've constantly needed it. They get themselves a guy from Georgia. It's a perfect fit. 6'5", freak of nature off the edge for the Atlanta Falcons. Then the Arizona Cardinals at 16 here. The Cardinals need a lot. The Cardinals, it's always bad there in Arizona, but their defense is definitely an issue. Who knows what's going to happen with Kyler? I can make a whole video on Kyler and how I don't like Kyler, but there's no quarterback here that they would take. Corner is also an issue for the Cardinals as well. They need help all across the board on defense. You could draft, except safety. Safety is literally the only thing they have with both Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. But you could literally pick any of these defenders that are on the board. Literally pick any of them. Defensive tackle is really bad for them as well. They could take Tyreek Williams, but that might be a little bit too early for him. So if you're the Arizona Cardinals, maybe you just go best player available. And on this board, I think it's James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. He's a pure 4-3 pass rusher. Super strong, super fast off the edge. Now, the Bengals here at 17, who knows what's going to happen with T. Higgins, right? Who knows what's going to happen with T. Higgins? And the Bengals defense was bad. The Bengals defense was bad. There is no way around it. I'm thinking that this is easily a wide receiver, but Joe Burrow came out and publicly said he wants T. Higgins back. He came out and said you cannot let a player like T. Higgins walk. Joe Burrow's made it public that he wants T. Higgins. I think if the Bengals let him go, that could be potentially an issue. So what do the Bengals do? There is Colston Loveson here, but Mike Gesicki was pretty good for the Bengals this year. Mike Gesicki might come back, so I think you just go best defensive player available. The Bengals could take any of these players. They really could. I even really like the Bengals taking a corner here in Siobhan Reevil, and I believe that he is the DB3 in this draft class, or corner 3 in this draft class. The issue with him is that he got hurt at the start of the season. However, it's already been shown that he got hurt so early in the season that if he gets drafted, he will be back in time for training camp. He will make the start of the season. The Bengals also easily could go Nick Scaronton here from Texas A&M. He's a beast as well. It's just, what do you prefer if you're the Bengals? And in a draft class that the biggest positive about this draft class is the defensive line. There are so many good defensive tackles and edge rushers in this class. I think you take DB3 if you can. Take Reevil. You need help in that secondary. That secondary got burned so many times. Take another corner who you can help develop and instantly start for this Bengals team, for this Bengals secondary. Now, they could go Scaronton here as well. They could go wide receiver. I think they go DB. You just got to get better in that secondary. So many times they got burned. And then Seahawks here at 18, I think they feel ecstatic that Malachi Starks fell to them. This is, like I said, think about when Derwin James, even though Derwin James was a better prospect than Malachi Starks, like I said, safeties always drop. Brian Branch, Derwin James, Malachi Starks, he falls to the Seahawks at 18. I think the Seahawks are thrilled to get him, especially with a defensive-minded head coach, which leaves the Texans here at 19. And I'm going to give the Texans... Where the hell is he? I'm going to give him Ikem Ekwonu. This is pretty easy for me. Reunite Ikem Ekwonu with CJ Stroud. The Houston Texans, yes, they have Nico Collins. We know that for sure. But Stephon Diggs was on the last year of his contract. We don't know if he's coming back. Hank Dell's injury was so severe, he's going to probably miss the entirety of the 2025 season. So besides Nico Collins, we do not know who else CJ Stroud's going to throw the ball to. Reunite him with his buddy from Ohio State, Ikem Ekwonu. I think that's an easy fit. Easy fit. I don't think there's much more I have to say about that. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they easily get a snipe Nick Scaronton here. Nick Scaronton's kind of fallen down the board, but in a class that is so good with edge rushers, one of them's going to fall. And this one for me was Nick Scaronton, but it could easily be James Pierce Jr. that falls, or maybe Derek Harmon doesn't get drafted as high as I drafted him. Some of these defensive players are going to fall. In this mock draft, it was just Nick Scaronton. Really like him from Texas A&M. He puts up great numbers. Great stats. He was their best defensive lineman for sure. Had a bunch of good, crucial sacks. Not much more I can say about him. The Buccaneers need help on defense. Their offense is pretty sound. Just go best player available. That's kind of going to be the theme for a lot of teams here. Just go best player available because of how interesting this draft class is. It's kind of a weaker draft class. And there are some positions, especially like I said, offensive line here, that do you really want to reach or just take a better defensive player? Now, Broncos here at 21, I think that this could be a handful of things. I don't hate the Broncos offensive line. The Broncos have a pretty good offensive line. This could be tight end. The team, it says here that their top needs are wide receiver and tackle, but some of these Broncos wide receivers have really balled out the last couple of weeks. I look at Mims, obviously Courtland Sutton's great. I also look at, what is his name, Veal, who's been really good for the Broncos. There's also Troy Franklin in there as well. We'll see if they try to develop him. And a wide receiver could be very easy to get as well. There's no wide receivers here that I would even take if I'm the Broncos. The Broncos also still have Mike McGlinchey and Garrett Bowles. Truly, I think that for the Denver Broncos, this could just be take who you think, again, like I said, is best player available. And for me, I'm going to go with Benjamin Morris from Notre Dame. Yes, you have Patrick Surtain. Riley Moss looked good for you as well. You constantly need corners, though. Plus, Riley Moss was hurt a little bit this year. Keep upgrading on the defensive side of the ball. Yes, Benjamin Morris was also hurt for Notre Dame as well. So I say you don't want to draft a corner that's hurt. But what am I saying? I mean, that could be a bad pick. Who knows? They could have also taken Tyreek Williams or Walter Nolan. I actually kind of like Walter Nolan a little bit more out of Ole Miss. They could have easily taken Walter Nolan here. That's probably what their pick should have been, but I clicked Benjamin Morris, and I'm not unhappy with that either. Then Steelers at 22, probably pissed off that Benjamin Morris just went to the Broncos because they probably very easily would have taken him. But if I'm the Steelers here, you just got to look at who's the best player available. Their offensive line's good. Running back, they don't need any of that. Wide receiver could very easily be in play here, but the issue is there any wide receiver that's going to go in the first round besides who went? Isaiah Bond is a really good weapon out of Texas there. I like Trey Harris. I like Xavier. It would probably be one of these three guys if someone did go in the first round, but here at 22, I just don't think there's anyone that is. So if I'm the Steelers, I'm honestly just going to take best player available. And to me, we're going to scroll down here. We're going to take Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Really good defensive tackle. Now, was he as good as he was because he was next to Mason Graham? That's up for the Steelers to find out. They could have also easily taken one of these other defensive tackles in Walter Nolan and Tyreek Williams, but Kenneth Grant put up great numbers at Michigan. Like I said, was that a product who he was next to? Who knows? But regardless, he's going to be going to a place where there is already Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt. Cameron Hayward is getting older. Maybe he could sit behind him for a year, learn behind one of the greats, and then take in over him. Not be him, but the Steelers, who have always had a good defensive line, are just getting prepared. It's not like they can take a quarterback here, right? And all the wide receivers, I'd much rather just take a wide receiver in the second round, honestly, or trade out of this position if I was the Steelers. But in a no trades mock draft, this is what they take. Then the Rams here at 23. This is a spot where I could see Colston Loveton. Yes, they have Tyler Higbee, but Tyler Higbee's always just been an average tight end. Nothing absolutely crazy here for the Rams. Their offensive line was so banged up this year that I could actually totally see them taking offensive line. And I'm going to take Cameron Williams, who I believe is definitely one of the better offensive tackles in this class. I think I drafted him as my third offensive lineman off the board. Interesting, I feel, about some of these offensive line prospects behind the top two guys. I think Cameron Williams probably will be the third offensive lineman taken off the board. I also know that, like I said, scouts are high on Jonah. I believe there's also an Oregon guy here that I see people high on as well. Josh Jr. here. This could be a lot of things for the Rams, but the Rams' offensive line got so banged up this year, and I believe just continuing to draft healthy offensive linemen, you can never have enough offensive linemen if you are the Rams. Then Packers here at 24. This end of the draft is going to be so hard to predict because we still don't know so many things about some of these guys. There's probably about 25 players that we know for sure, or maybe only 20 players that we know for sure are going to go in the first round. Then a lot of these guys can sneak into the first round here. that Pro Football does not have. Like I said, Trey Harris could sneak into the first round. Xavier could sneak into the first round. Jaheed Campbell, the top linebacker, could go into the first round as well. Maybe Jalen Milroe somehow sneaks into the first round, but I highly doubt it with how bad he's just looked. Emory Jones is a good offensive tackle that I could see sneaking into the first round as well. Isaiah Bond. There's so many guys. Now, the Packers at 24, I believe that there's a lot of things they could take, and we will go ahead and give them Walter Nolen. I really like him as a defensive tackle prospect. Walter Nolen is about your prototypical size, 6'4", 300 pounds, really productive for Ole Miss, really good off their defensive line. He's really good at getting into the backfield, creating pressure. I really like what he offers, and I think he could bode well there for the Packers. As you know, it is cold there, so I went with the Ole Miss guy who's at least knows a little bit more about the cold rather than, I guess Ohio State knows about cold too. I don't even know what I'm talking about, the cold right now. But I went with Ole Miss. And then Chargers at 25, easily going Colston Loveson. Was I purposely not drafting him to some teams? I think the only teams that realistically could have taken Colston Loveson were, like I said, the Rams, maybe the Broncos. But like I said, the Bengals had Mike Gesicki, but they like Mike Gesicki. He falls back with Jim Harbaugh. Really like the fit. Don't think there's anything else I need to say there. The Washington Commanders desperately need secondary. And for me, I'm going to give him Trey Amos from Ole Miss. Ole Miss now having players going 24 and 26. Trey Amos is just the best DB on the board. I believe he also is battling injury, though, in Ole Miss. So a lot of these DBs coming off injuries, but it was nothing significant, I believe, for Trey. Well, it doesn't even tell me, but I'm pretty sure he was hurt, a little bit banged up. But he'll be good to go for the Commanders at the start of the season, who just have a really bad secondary. Ravens here, Tyler Booker is one of the top offensive lineman prospects in the class. The really tough thing with Tyler Booker, though, is he is a true guard. He will not be able to play tackle for you. He just kind of lacks that movement that you need from a tackle. He's just not as athletic, not as twitchy, but he'll be really good in the interior offensive line for the Ravens, who obviously have Derrick Henry, obviously have Lamar Jackson. They love to run the ball. Just get yourself one of the best guards in the class and just continue to bolster that offensive line. Then Eagles here, I could easily see this being Jaheed Campbell from Alabama for the Eagles. The Eagles are one of the teams that need linebacker the most. They have a great secondary, great defensive line. Linebacker is only really their weakness on defense, and the Eagles have a great offense. Don't really need much there. Have a really good defense. Linebacker's their biggest need. You can get the best linebacker in the draft class at 28. Why not do that? Then Buffalo here at 29. I could see this being a lot of things for Buffalo, but I am going to draft Josh Simmons for them. I would have taken Jonah, but then I was thinking, well, he does play for U of A in Arizona, the sunniest and hottest state in the damn United States, and he's going to go to Buffalo. That might not work out. They might want someone who wants the cold. I don't know if teams actually think about that at all. I'm sure it doesn't matter to a lot of teams, but I went with the guy who's going to be more experienced in playing in that cold weather, in Josh Simmons. I also really like Jonah as well. I believe Jonah will probably be a first-round pick. We'll see if he makes it to the first round in this mock draft. Who knows? Then you got Vikings here at 30. Vikings are such a weird team. They really are. Because the Vikings have a lot of pieces that I would say people would classify as overperforming this year. So it's really hard to tell who the Vikings are going to keep, who they're going to get rid of. The Vikings defense at times looked really great. The Vikings defense at other times did not look as good as you would like. So if you're the Vikings, what are you going to take here? And I'm just going to go with one of the best playmakers in the secondary, and Xavier Watts for Notre Dame. Absolute freak. He's so fast. I believe he had 5 or 6 interceptions for Notre Dame. Absolute playmaker. He's able to get picks for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, who they still have Smith. Harrison Smith, who's been an absolute stud for them. Harrison Smith isn't getting any younger. And you also need 2 safeties. The Vikings, I know they got Stephon Gilmore, Harrison Smith. They're both older pieces. You need to get younger at your secondary, which they already have some there as well. But just, I'm going for best playmaker, best ball hawk that we have here. And to me, that is Xavier Watts for Notre Dame. Then you got the Lions here at 31. This has to be defense. Their defense just got absolutely so banged up this year. And for me, Tyreek Williams is still here, and I'm going to send him over to Detroit. Detroit, their defensive line and their secondary just got absolutely obliterated this year. You can never have enough defensive line, and Detroit shows you why. Get the best defensive lineman on the board, have him go to Detroit, and then finally the Chiefs at 32. I believe that this could be a lot of things for the Chiefs. I think that a lot of wide receivers will want to go to the Chiefs. I'm really trying to think of what this could be, because obviously they're the best team in football. There's not that much that the Chiefs need. Their offense, honestly, wasn't as good as their defense was this year. So if you're the Chiefs, I could see this being on either side of the ball. Pro Football Focus says that the Chiefs need a safety. And I know that Shaheed Barron is more of a nickel corner than a safety. But Nick from South Carolina is truly a true strong safety. But I could also see this maybe being Trey Harris, but maybe the Chiefs want to go for a veteran. This could also be Landon Jackson from Arkansas. We'll just go with Nick from South Carolina. I know 2 safeties is kind of crazy. Why is it only showing me my pick from the Ravens? Oh, full results. So as you can see, here's my first mock draft. I feel really good about it. There are some picks, or a lot of picks, that you could definitely change instead of what I did. But it's the first mock draft. The season is still going on. Week 18 just ended. We still have playoffs. We still have so much more that is going to have to be revealed. But let me know if there's any picks that you think are outrageous and you can never see happening. Let me know if there are picks that you love. Let me know if whatever I picked for your team you like or dislike. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave comments down below if you want me to continue to make these. And peace out.